Welcome to the Hormone Hub, your go-to source for the conversations every woman in her 40s and 50s needs to have. I'm your host, Kylie Pinwill, your nutritionist helping you navigate your way through perimenopause, menopause and beyond so you can say goodbye to the endless fatigue, unexplained weight gain, hot flushes, PMS, mood changes and more that come on this hormonal roller coaster. If you missed the memo or think this is only for women of a certain age, ladies, it's time to think again. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of my latest episodes, which are released every week. Share it with your friends, your sweaty sisters. The more we talk, the more we help each other. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Hormone Hub. Today I am very excited to introduce one of my very good friends, Tara Nelson. Tara and I have known each other for a long time now, and Tara is a very experienced naturopath, and her area of specialty is the thyroid, which I know is a big thing for women going through, well, women in general, women going through perimenopause, menopause. You know, our thyroid, as you know, and as you've heard me talk about many, many times, all of our hormones work together, and the thyroid is a big player. So we're going to jump in today to all things thyroid. So welcome, Tara. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Kylie. It's great to be here.
Yes, today's going to be fun.
Yes, I think it will be.
We were chatting away and we had to remember to hit record before we
Yeah, we've already recorded a whole podcast.
I know. So Tara, you know, your specialty ever since I've known you as a naturopath has been the thyroid. And, you know, you and I have both had sort of personal thyroid histories, and I think that's, you know, I think as practitioners that sort of naturally leads us down the pathway to sort of work with the things that, you know, we experience personally. So it's really good, and I'm so excited for you to be here to share your expertise as well.
Yeah, great.
So tell us a bit about you, and tell us, you know, you live in a beautiful part of the world as well.
I do. I'm down in Yallingup, which is about 3 hours south of Perth in Western Australia. It is a beautiful part of the world, and Kylie's visited here. Yes, I've been a naturopath for like probably about 28 years now, close to 30 years. And yeah, probably around about sort of, you know, maybe about close to 10 years ago or a little bit less, I was, you know, doing lots of normal one-to-one consultations and wanting to just change the way I was practicing, you know, do things a bit differently. And it's like, you know, that old sort of thing when you think about, you know, what do I want to change? You put it out to the universe, and then usually you get hit with a hammer. And that's pretty much what happened to me with the thyroid. I started to see lots of thyroid presentations in clinic when I hadn't previously. You know, it was very uncommon for me to see it. And I'm not sure at the time it was an increase in thyroid presentations, or it definitely was in my clinic. And I was looking at very complex presentations, and, you know, symptoms weren't matching up to pathology, and pathology wouldn't match up to symptoms. And I was seeing very sort of, you know, I was looking at like what the thyroid was meant to sort of be happening or display. It just wasn't adding up. So I actually sort of threw myself back into research and really learning all I could, because my naturopathic protocols were just, you know, not covering it. What I learned back in, you know, uni and college wasn't covering it. And then along the way, I discovered that, you know, just through getting the right testing, I discovered that I actually had Hashimoto's myself, which was mind-blowing. And the more sort of presentations that I saw in clinic with my patients, it really made sense of where mine actually started, which I think was, you know, postpartum, you know, 3 kids in 4 years, 3 cesareans, you know, renovating the house, crashing down, you know, rammed earth walls, and lots of stress, and, you know, breastfeeding for how many years, kids not sleeping, you know, all of those, that perfect storm. My hair all snapped off, you know, above my ears, you know, all of the things. But at the time, you know, I didn't get the right testing. I was too busy to have tests. So I had 3 little kids, and it was so crazy busy. It just felt like I was underwater all the time, just getting through each day to day. And then when, you know, 15 years later, when I got that diagnosis, first of all, it was a subclinical hypothyroidism. My TSH was 7. Then I tested my antibodies. It was just like, whoa. But it made so much sense. It really started to, you know, clarify how I'd been feeling for so many years, just really not living, so tired, so exhausted, all of the things. And so that began my own personal journey with healing myself, using what I was learning, what I was researching, what I was studying. I was really putting into practice, not only for my patients, but myself. And here I am, probably 5 years into remission of my Hashimoto's. My antibodies are below the level. I'm constantly getting, tests to make sure that everything's good. But yeah, I'm living really well with my autoimmune thyroid diagnosis. And that's what I really help to do with anyone that comes to see me with a thyroid condition.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing, because I think I remember reading somewhere that the average diagnosis for a thyroid autoimmune condition was something like 7 or 8 years, and that's a long time to not feel 100%. And and you're right, there's so many crossover things. Like, is it that time of life? And we know as practitioners that pregnancy and that postpartum period can trigger a lot of thyroid issues, and certainly it was pregnancy that triggered mine. I ended up with a benign tumor that had to be removed, resulting in half my thyroid being removed after the birth of one of my kids. So it was and at the time, I didn't really understand what it was either. And was I just tired because I had a baby and a toddler? Yes. To realize that your body's working against you as well, at the same time. It's, you don't. And I think, what I see with a lot of clients that I work with is we're now sort of in this perimenopause sort of zone, heading into menopause, where again, life is really busy. We've got young adult or teenage kids who need us just as much as almost,
if not more
than the toddlers and the babies did.
100%, yeah.
Our parents are getting older, we're still busy with work and, partners, the whole thing. So we've got so much going on. So what are, some of the signs and symptoms that something might be up with your thyroid that perhaps are a little bit different or a little bit further than, perimenopause, menopause symptoms?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I think just to clarify, I think the reason why, obviously we talk about testing, but, I think a lot of reasons why thyroid doesn't get tested is obviously the wrong testing and waiting for something very obvious to stand out before that diagnosis, where things can be going on for many, many years, causing a lot of problems before it's actually, you actually have Hashimoto's. And once you see those high antibodies, that doesn't happen overnight. It can happen in a thyroiditis type situation, post-viral, postpartum. But when you're seeing high antibodies, those antibodies have been causing thyroid cell destruction for many, many years until it causes a permanent hypothyroidism in the gland. So, but doctors don't test antibodies, right? So, yeah, we're probably jumping the gun there. But that's, and also the other sort of thing to consider is that because the thyroid hormones are needed in pretty much every single cell and tissue in the body, so many other things get diagnosed instead of the thyroid. Because number one, the doctors are just testing a TSH. So there can be that underlying thyroid pathology before it's really picked up. So it can be misdiagnosed as depression. I've seen that so many times over the years. Low mood, that's the big one. Low mood, anxiety, depression, because the brain is a huge reservoir of thyroid hormones. Brain fog is another one, a really common one. But you go and see your doctor and like, I've got low mood, I'm depressed, I can't think, I've got poor memory. Oh, well, yes, you're going through perimenopause, menopause, or you've just had a baby, or you're pregnant. All of those things. The other thing I think is the adrenals and the thyroid work very closely together, and many of the signs of and symptoms of thyroid are also the signs of like stress and busy and adrenal fatigue. So there's many systems that overlap with the thyroid, the hormones, the adrenals, the mood signs and symptoms. And I think that's why they go, oh, well, you're depressed, here, have an antidepressant. Oh, well, you're going through perimenopause, have some progesterone or estrogen, instead of really looking at the thyroid. And I think the thyroid physiology underpins all of those conditions. You have to have healthy thyroid function for all of those things to work well. And it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, right? Because is it the hormones causing the thyroid, or is it the thyroid causing the hormone dysregulation? And I think a lot of the time it is the thyroid blamed when it's actually an obvious condition. But a lot of the time the thyroid is just trying to fix and support It's a homeostatic little gland. It's trying to fix what's going on. So getting to your original question, after my big long-winded blurb there, you have to keep me on track because I go off on these big tangents with the thyroid. So definitely, that low mood, a consistently low mood, low motivation, combined with absolute fatigue and exhaustion. I think when you're in that real throes of Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, you are flat as a tack. You just can't be bothered. You should get up and do that exercise. You know that you should be doing this and that, but the motivation combined with that low mood and fatigue is really, really detrimental for so many women. I think I see they've just got to the point where I can't be bothered. I know what I should be doing, but it's just I don't have that energy and that motivation. So fatigue and exhaustion is a big one, like depression, low mood, brain fog, just can't, inability to think clearly and losing things and forgetting things. And then, I think especially for women, we go down that track of, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I just can't remember. I'm not feeling great. And then there's all that other things that come with that.
I hear women say all the time, it's just not who I am.
No,
I know.
It's just knowing that you're not your best. You've gone from being this person that was doing all of the things, and all of a sudden you're just this. It's struggle. It's a struggle every day to try and do things. So we are definitely talking about hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's here, which is that underfunctioning, in underactive thyroid. And there are similarities with the other arm of the thyroid being hyper and Graves' disease. Some of those symptoms definitely go hand in hand in both conditions, but there are some differences. So other things we look out for is, an inability to lose weight. I mean, many women, but not all with Hashimoto. Some can be, thin whippets, as I call them. They don't need a lot of whip for their metabolism to work. They've got that good genetic metabolism. They'll have sort of different sort of symptoms, dry hair, dryness all around. So dry, brittle hair that breaks easily, or, dry skin. And a really interesting one, but quite common, is something called paresthesias. So sort of like tingling in the extremities. So in the joints, and that extends to also sore muscles. That's a really common one. So it's anything that, when we're not getting those really good adequate thyroid hormones out to wherever it's needed, it can be anything. Anything can be attributed to low, underfunctioning thyroid or low thyroid hormones in the body.
It's an all over body experience. It really.
And everyone is different. Everyone will experience different symptoms. Yes, there's the three sort of top ones would be fatigue, weight gain, or inability to lose weight. You just can't lose. You can't budge that weight no matter how hard you try, whatever you do. And brain fog is definitely another one. It also just is digestive issues. So when you have an underactive thyroid, again, everything slows down. So we often see constipation or a SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because everything is just slow. The transit time slows down. But it's a very individual thing. I'll have Hashimoto's women with lots of gut dysbiosis, and they have loose stools. So it's very much what's going on for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think it's just that overall feeling of, sluggishness and nothing that you're doing, like we all know what eating well looks like. We all know that we should exercise. We all know, but it's when, these things just aren't kicking into place that there's something that's going on underneath. And I sort of see it, all the time, and we'll sort of like go into a bit into blood testing. And, that's where I will refer a woman on for further testing. And generally we have to do it privately, because we'll chat about why we can't get proper thyroid testing, which is, like a big frustration for us as practitioners, because what we tend to test for is TSH, which, and Tara, I'll get you to sort of explain, TSH, T4, T3, what we're looking for as practitioners to see that thyroid. I mean, I always look at whatever we can get. So generally, I look at iron as well, because that is 100% to what's going on with the thyroid. So I'll let you sort of explain, what we're looking for as practitioners.
Yeah, sure. So if you've got some symptoms and you think it's, you've read a little bit about your thyroid, you want to go and have a full thyroid panel. It's definitely, the symptoms are one piece of your thyroid puzzle, the testing's another. If you have, I always look at an ultrasound as well. So it's lots of different things we can put genetics, put together to create, to see your thyroid drivers and triggers, all those things. But with the testing, I believe the biggest thing I want to see is the thyroid hormones. Okay, so the thyroid gland makes out predominantly about 97% of T4, and then that's got to be converted to T3. But the thyroid only makes around about sort of 3 to 4% of T3. So, and the T3 is actually the active thyroid hormone that gives you a really good metabolism. It gives you energy.
Really want to have a look at, because that's
yes.
thyroid's working.
Yes. And then a TSH, so really what happens in thyroid physiology is the thyroid gland, in response to low thyroid hormones. So, you walked into a cold room and there's you need more temperature control. The thyroid should make some more hormones to sort of go out to sort of sort that problem out. So the thyroid gland predominantly makes a lot of T4, and then that needs to be converted to T3. And then that needs to get into the cell, and then that'll send a message back to the brain that, we're all good. So TSH is, responding, the level of TSH on a blood test responds to the amount of thyroid hormones in the bloodstream, in your cell, okay? So the lower that your thyroid hormones are, so I can see that on paper, on your pathology. So if you've got low T4 and T3, that, we should see a higher TSH, because that's sending a message back to the brain. Hey, she needs more thyroid hormones. TSH is like the little messenger that knocks on the thyroid door going, come on, she needs more, make more. Yeah. So, but sometimes if you have, hypothyroidism, or if you have Hashimotos, the thyroid gland has an inability to make those thyroid hormones. So we're going to constantly see a higher TSH in that respect. So TSH, yes, is part of that picture, but a lot of the time the doctors just test TSH. Now, why? Goodness knows. It's an old school paradigm, medical paradigm that hasn't been updated in many, many years. I had a GP once that I was trying to get, all full thyroid testing for my clients, and he sent me their actual paradigm of what the doctors do. They test TSH, and if that's within a big range, they won't test anything else until that goes out of range, either too low or too high.
Yeah, I love that. We'll wait, and it's a bit low or it's a bit high. We'll wait and see.
Yes, we'll wait and see. Yeah, until something really big happens. But what can happen, and what I see a lot of, and I'm sure you do as well, is that you can have positive antibodies. So you can have Hashimoto's, your immune system making antibodies to just actually destroy your thyroid tissue, which it causes more of an inability for the gland to make thyroid hormones, and the TSH can stay normal. So we call that early stage autoimmunity. So the antibody, the immune system can be making these antibodies against, actually kills off our thyroid tissue for a long time before actually hypothyroidism sets in. So Hashimoto's is the number one biggest driver and cause of hypothyroidism.
Yes.
And that can be going on a long time before TSH really hits the roof or goes really low. So that's why so many thyroid conditions aren't diagnosed enough. And then the more that goes on, the more you have that autoimmune attack on your gland, all of a sudden one day you kind of wake up, you've got kind of chronic stage Hashimoto's, and your gland is pretty much, a lot of that tissue has been destroyed. Then you're going to need medication. Then you're diagnosed, because your symptoms are going to be really, really, aggressive. You'll go to the doctor. They'll see that high TSH now. You'll be put on medication, told to take that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But we do know that medication is not the be-all, end-all. And even T4 medication, as we're finding out now, is not the best thing for many, many people.
This Hormone Hub episode is sponsored by The Well Balanced Woman. If you've been on a hormonal roller coaster, feeling bloated, your digestion isn't the best, and you're sick and tired of feeling lethargic with your weight creeping up, then this is the right program for you. I'm right there with you across the 12 weeks to hold your hand, and I'll give you a loving kick up the bum if you need it. The Well Balanced Woman is your personalised 4-phase program created to help you regain your energy, balance your hormones, and fire up your metabolism so you get the results you're after. The link with all the details is on our show notes or over at kyliepinwell.com/wellbalancedwoman. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and and that's the beauty. So, and I think part of the GP constraints, and I think this is worldwide, because I work with a lot of clients in New Zealand, in the States, and I think it's worldwide that they just test for that TSH.
It is. You're right.
in Australia, I know, GPs are also bound by Medicare constraints and things like that, but the testing is available privately. And that is something that as natural health practitioners, we can, refer our clients on for that. So there is an out-of-pocket expense for that. But certainly I know with clients that I work with, if I've got a client who's not, if we don't have the full bloods and I've got a client who's not responding the way I would expect to the treatment that we've got together, I will refer that client on for additional testing. And, it's scary how many times those antibodies come back in those tests.
I know, yeah. Or another thing that I'm seeing quite a lot of is that, there may have been antibodies picked up at some stage. So I get these clients, I've been referred by another practitioner to you, see Tara, because you specialise in thyroid, or, I've had these results and I look back and I just look at them. I said, you've got Hashimoto's. Oh, do I? Because that practitioner didn't actually know I had Hashimoto's, or no one's actually told me I have Hashimoto's. And I said, yes, I can see on your results back in 2018 when your antibodies were tested, you have Hashimoto's. And I have to be really careful because, I'm sort of like kind of excited for them that now they know, but it's a real big shock for many of these people, especially women that go, oh my gosh, I was never told. I'm like, yeah, you've had it for many years. It hasn't been picked up. Well, it has actually been picked up, but no one's actually gone, yes, you have Hashimoto's. And if there's any presence of antibodies, that is Hashimoto's. You have, we know that we don't look at what level they are. If it's over in the red, it's above the reference range, your immune system is making those antibodies to attack your thyroid gland. Yeah. And even if it's in the early stages, there's a lot we can do to halt that process or modulate that immune system before it gets to that very chronic stage. But I've been seeing a lot of clients lately that just, say, do I, I'm like, you've got Hashimoto's, really? Oh my goodness. And then they have to really sort of, wow, now I know I've got a thyroid autoimmune condition. And I have to kind of do a little bit of counseling around that to say, it's okay. You've got your diagnosis. Now we know what we can really work towards. But it's a shock. It can be a shock for many people.
Definitely. And I think that's the thing. And it's frustrating for us as practitioners because we can kind of like pull the pieces together. But it's, the earlier that we can identify what's going on and the earlier we can start to treat that, the better the outcome, 100%. To the client every single time.
Definitely. Yes.
Now, when you're sort of given a diagnosis of Hashimoto's, and the beautiful thing is, like Katara, you're in remission with your Hashimoto's. I've worked with several clients who are also in remission. So it's not it is a life sentence insofar as you need to manage it. You need to be on top of it. You need to take care of yourself so it stays in control. So, but the beauty is, it doesn't need to. It doesn't mean you've got a lifelong debilitating condition. So what are some of the things that we can do to sort of support our thyroid, support our body to keep our thyroid as healthy as we can?
Yeah, definitely. So, and that's what I talk to a lot in my programs about to my clients, my thyroid recovery programs, is that it's all about living well and embracing, your condition, because it's not going anywhere. Once you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, no matter what it is, yes, if remission is possible or getting it into the best place as possible, you've always got it. The immune system, once switched on, never forgets. So it could be a virus, some sort of mental, physical trauma. So people can have flares, quite often. That's one thing I do work with clients is managing their autoimmune flares. But if you've got all those things we're going to talk about now, in hand, those flares are minor and, they don't, flare as big as they used to, because that can be a big thing too. When I talk to clients, I can just see how they're having these little flares. They'll go, and they're the sort of people that go from feeling okay one day to 3 days later actually falling in a heap, and then they're in a heap for a few days and then they come up again. It's this up and down kind of roller coaster with autoimmunity that, what we actually specialize in downgrading that immune response. So, I always talk in the programs too, or every client, is that your thyroid condition, when we diagnose it, particularly the autoimmune Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, we do have to come in with a lot of like nutraceuticals, some herbs and nutrients to really support what's going on and get it into that really good place. But at the end of the day, it's what you do consistently in your diet and lifestyle. 80% of the time is how you live well with Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, right? So, if you have an autoimmune condition, definitely it's a gluten-free. You've got to be gluten-free because gluten will activate that immune system all the time. Any sort of slight gluten exposure can set you up for a flare, can affect your gut. And we know that a lot of where that autoimmunity comes from is the gut, leaky gut, intestinal permeability. Gluten can flare that, up, and it can ramp up that immune system attack. So working with diet, my clients will definitely be gluten-free, dairy-free, food intolerances, or I may even put them on an autoimmune paleo protocol for about 3 or 4 months to really heal the gut. That has to be done, very closely with a practitioner so we can manage that, because it's a very restrictive diet, but it can be quite amazing, particularly for people that have very high antibodies, poor gut health, or have 2 or more autoimmune conditions, because getting that immunity or that autoimmunity under control is super important. Number one, because the TPO antibody specific in Hashimoto's actually cause cell death in your thyroid. They kill off your cells, and then your thyroid has an inability to make thyroid hormones, right? So you're going to rely more and more on medication. Now, the other sort of important one is to modulate the immune system, is that once you have an autoimmune condition and that immune system is acting in that very dysregulated fashion, like, making antibodies against our own tissue, you are at risk of developing another autoimmune condition. So finding that you've got, if you've got those thyroid symptoms and you've never had your antibodies tested, then go and see a practitioner and get the right testing to get the full thyroid panel and the antibodies tested to rule that out, because that just doesn't go away. Once you've got it, you need to be working on it through the diet and the lifestyle. Yeah. So you don't develop another autoimmune condition.
Absolutely. And I think too, if you've got a family member, a close family member with autoimmune conditions, you're fully within your rights to ask for a full thyroid panel.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I do try. I'll just say, look, I do try. I do believe. I'm a little bit of a staunch about this, is that, I feel like we pay our taxes and we pay Medicare levies, and we should have access to these Medicare tests. So depending on whether I'm working with a client, mostly in Australia with Medicare, that, I'd see a lot of clients online as well. And it's like, go back to your GP and just say to them, I'd like this testing. And, yes, pull the family history. I have mother, grandmother, whatever, with autoimmune condition. And by rights, in that medical paradigm, that actually says that you are entitled to those tests. And then and if you have that GP that really just does not like it, and don't say you've come for your naturopath, because that can really get their backs up. Just say, look, I've got these symptoms. I've read a lot about thyroid. I try and empower my patients to get the right testing for free if they can first. So I would like these tests because I'm having these symptoms, and I would like the antibodies, and I would like all this other stuff we can talk, other things tested. And what can you give me under Medicare? Yeah. And if not, I will pay for the others. So I really try and empower my clients to get as much as they can under Medicare. And then I will, if they just refuse, then I'll do that functional testing that they have to pay for. Yeah, there's always options. We can always get the test. But I kind of feel like, you know what? Give it a red hot go, because you just might get that good GP that does it all for you. And you've saved a lot of out-of-pocket expense that you can put to eating healthy, buying gluten-free bread or whatever it is,
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, like, we're entitled to answers when it comes to our own health. So,
I think we just need to empower people to say, look, that I'm entitled to this. I pay my taxes, and and look, we do have to give the poor old GPs a break. They are under a medical paradigm that they have to follow. Also, too, just recently, I think it was last year, Medicare, have put a lot more pressure on the back of GPs, and that included thyroid testing, that included antibodies, and it basically included all the things that we want, right, Kylie? All the things that we test.
What really with me is it was basically all of the tests that would identify, and help an exhausted woman who comes into clinic. So it impacted iron studies, it impacted
vitamin D. Yeah, all of the things.
All of the things that, give us information about why you are feeling so tired and why you're feeling exhausted, because once we know like what the root cause is of that exhaustion, we know the best way we can support you to sort of turn that around. And
yeah, it's super frustrating, it is, but, I do kind of just say, look, and a lot of patients will say, oh, yeah, my GP is not too bad. I say, well, give it a red hot go. Don't come in there guns blazing, but just say, and I tell them the wording to approach. If someone says, oh, God, no, then I say, find another GP. There are others out there. Try someone else. If you really think you've got an old school that, is good. Yeah. That's kind of my sort of, I try and get as much as I can first. But
yeah. Definitely. So what I'll do in the show notes is I'll put, sort of a list of, thyroid markers that will help.
Right.
So you can have a conversation with your GP about that.
Yes, perfect.
So Tara, you have a 12-week ultimate VIP thyroid recovery program. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So, I realised I have been doing one-to-one consulting for, as I said, 28 years. And I particularly with thyroid, because thyroid is complex. You need to look at all the drivers and triggers. You need to look at the diet, the lifestyle, how hormones can influence the thyroid, how stress can influence the thyroid, how heavy metals can toxins in the environment. So I found when I was doing my one-to-one consulting is that, it's very time limited, even though I do spend 75 minutes in the first consult and, 40 minutes in the second. Really, we're micromanaging test results, just getting on the prescription. I found there was so many things that I didn't get to discuss to really set people up to managing and living well with the thyroid condition moving forward. And as I said, once you get those, you're over that initial treatment and things come into range, then what you do 90 or 80% of the time in your diet and lifestyle is everything. But, the time in a consult just didn't allow that. So that's why I put together the 12-week program where we go through step-by-step foundational what you need to do. I mean, we spend pretty much the first 4 or 5 weeks just on diet and lifestyle because that is huge. And then we look at causes, drivers and triggers, the thyroid nutrients you need to have on board, hormones, metaphysically, what does the thyroid mean, from a metaphysical point of view? There's so many, lots of different things we add to the program to really, so you've got all the information. Yeah, I mean, one-to-one consults work well, but I just feel there's so much missing and you can really just get all that information from a program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just having that support, that accountability, that guidance and, and the education to empower you to make choices about your health.
Yes. Yeah. And then again, yes, we have that support group alongside where we meet, where I'm posting, where you can post, where you can connect with other people in the same situation. And at the moment, we've got so many different types of thyroid presentations in. It's so cool to see what everyone's going through and watching everyone, cheering each other on and being accountable and having someone there through 12 weeks. I always find, so when, if we go back to even talking about testing, once I've got those initial tests and I start treatment, I don't like to do any testing for 3 months, particularly if you have hypo-Hashis, because particularly Hashimoto's, it's a chronic condition. It's long-term. If you have high antibodies, they've been there for years. They don't just develop overnight. So it takes time to really shift. And when your immune system is in that dysfunctional state of making those antibodies against your thyroid tissue, it takes time. You kind of got to have all your ducks in a row to really help that condition, back off. You can't just do support the gut and that's it. If you've got stress going on or you're not sleeping, you've got to have those ducks in a row. And that takes time to implement all those changes and doing that on your own. Wow, that's just, that's hard work. So having the group, having the platform, having those other people doing it alongside you can really help with other things going on.
Yeah, no, that's right. All right, Tara. So anyone who would like to find out more about Tara's VIP thyroid recovery program, I will put the details in the show notes, but you can find out more at taranelson.com.au. And we'll have the blood test, we'll have Tara's details and program details in the show notes. And thank you, Tara, so much for, sharing your knowledge today. And, certainly for myself as a practitioner, Tara is my go-to. If I've got, any sort of curly thyroid questions, Tara absolutely knows this inside out. So, appreciate your help, Tara. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, everyone, I will see you in the next episode of the Hormone Hub. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. You can head on over to the show notes at kyliepinwell.com/podcast, where you'll find all the links, and I have a little bonus surprise waiting for you. Before we go, it would mean the world to me if you head on over to your favourite podcasts channel, subscribe and leave a review. Make sure to screenshot it, DM it to me so I can thank you personally. Then stay tuned for next week's episode. Can't wait to see you then.